I have to say, watching this week's episode, it was almost like watching someone play Shadow of the Colossus. The way Juri was grappling around this handler who was insanely tall, insanely powerful, had multiple people inside of it. It was just a treat to watch, and I really enjoyed that overall. But I have to say, the way this series can play with cliffhangers, I really was sold on the idea that Tsubasa was going to get critically wounded by that knife based on the fact that we saw blood and contact, but they baited us. And I have to say, I have to give them credit, but I was worried because I was thinking, if you keep removing the sense of danger, then nothing seems worrisome. But to their defense, they immediately showed us that, well, we can see what happened. I mean, he literally kills a man, strangles him, and then it more or less breaks him, which ultimately results in him becoming a handler himself. So I like how they did bait the viewer with the knife, but then they gave us a different consequence for his actions, and I thought it was really well done, especially learning the fact that Juri, her ability doesn't just work on normal humans, it can also work on the handlers and extract them from being a handler, and it seems that if it's early on enough, she can more or less save them based on the fact that her brother did not become a handler after she extracted it, even though he started having the roots and all the other kind of like material on top of his body. And that was really interesting to learn, and then it perfectly ties into the remainder of this episode where essentially the girl wants her family back. She wants her family to be free, and I really wasn't sure the way they're going to go with this episode, if they're going to go as long as it's early enough she can save people from being a handler, or there's no time limit and she can extract and save people whenever. But ultimately we can see there definitely is a time limit. But I am curious because that boy comes out at the end, and I'm not sure if that was her brother or if it was a different person, but nonetheless it seems like maybe even if you are a handler for a certain amount of time, if maybe you haven't done much as a handler, you haven't been kind of taken over and consumed as much as other people, maybe that's why this boy survived. Really don't know the direction they're gonna go, but this cliffhanger definitely outbeats any of the other cliffhangers we've seen. But I like how this episode functioned because it's really tying together the idea of what the series is going for. Granted, we still don't know why this one organization was so bound and bent in getting this object and how they knew about it, but at least we have a drive for this other girl wanting her family and why she was so bound and bent with Juri and basically being mad at her because Juri didn't even know that she could extract her family members for all these years. And I like how it functioned, and I have to say, it almost did feel like a boss battle near the end of the episode. The idea of essentially they need to summon the handler, we need to have a strong kill intent so that all of her family members would be summoned, and then Juri can ultimately fist of fury, kind of like a mercy kill in a lot of ways. But I thought it was interesting that she couldn't do it, and it really goes to show that she isn't a killer, she's in basically an organization that she doesn't fit in, but it's ultimately to get what she wants with her family. And I thought it was really good in how they built up her character throughout. How many times, probably a couple dozen times, she tried stabbing a stalled and didn't have the intent to kill, hence why no handler popped up. But what's weird is that her father, Juri's father, just put his hand on the guy's neck and then is just like, well, I wonder how much intent I have to kill, and then immediately they all summon. So what's this father been doing in his spare time? Is he a psychopathic serial killer? Like, what's going on inside that guy's head that he's able to want to kill someone that bad without even having a weapon? And I really hope they play up into that with the second half of this series, because I really want to see if he does have a couple of screws loose, or if he is a dangerous person, even maybe to people around that he likes and knows. And I just thought the idea of how they constantly kept jumping around with the teleportation ability with the grandpa, basically saving the father, but then ultimately Juri, it wasn't just like a one-hit, one-kill, because that's what we've been seeing a lot with Juri, is that she comes in, she basically fist palms them, and then it's over. But I like how the handler wasn't this easy opponent. It was literally something that she had to keep crawling around, extracting one, hanging on for dear life. It really did feel like a boss battle ripped from something like Shadow of the Colossus, and it was exciting to watch, but it had a lot of substance to it outside of just the eye candy that was the visuals. I really enjoyed the facial expressions and the detail put into these characters' emotions, and you did feel like, man, this father might die for his actions because he, for whatever reason, has an insane intent to kill. And I just really liked how everything was built up here. I love how the cliffhanger from last week played in. At first I was worried they weren't going to do anything meaningful with it, but then turning Tsubasa into a handler to have Juri save him just in the nick of time, having the whole build up with the family, and then the cliffhanger with the kid. Wow, like this might be the best episode of the series. I definitely feel like this series knows where it's going. It has a lot of substance. It could easily fail depending on what they do with the whole organization near the end, but nonetheless, I'm having a blast right now. I'm loving the characters, and it's just exciting to watch. Like, for whatever reason, they started adding this kind of like weird one-off comedy off and on, where like it's kind of like the Ancient Magus' Brides comedy, where like they just pull away, and it's not quite chibi, but it has this very drastic art style change to have like these comedic moments. And they did it once in this episode, and they've done it a couple of times throughout the past episodes, and I don't quite know why they're doing it. Like, it makes sense to do it when you have something that you are trying to have comedic relief, but it doesn't really feel like we need comedic relief in these types of episodes, especially with what happened to her brother and what was happening with the family and the handler. So it seems a little weird that they did add that in, and hopefully they tone it down, or at least make it make more sense later down the line. But I had a blast with this episode. The only thing that really stuck out like a sore thumb was that comedy, but it was such a minor thing. By looking at this episode as a whole, the package was really well done. And I especially loved the animation when it came to the handler. The slow but powerful swing of these arms and just the force. Like, damn, this is an enjoyable episode. Really enjoyable. I think I'm definitely going to rewatch this episode later today. But let me know your thoughts. What did you think of this insane episode? And where do you think that cliffhanger is going to lead us with episode 7 next week? Let me know your thoughts. And before you leave, smack that like button, share your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.